Today we have with us Dr. Pushp Lata, and she is going to conduct a workshop on academic writing and style. She would, her session is going to be quite useful to everyone who is teaching English. I have invited many of the researchers who are doing their PhD and MPhil in English because they are the ones who are badly in need of the right guidance when it comes to writing their research works. To introduce Dr. Pushp Lata, she has been associated with one of India's most prestigious institutes, Birla Institute of Technology and Science. We know it as BITS Pilani. She has been working with BITS Pilani for almost 27 years now. She joined BITS somewhere in 1994. She has been working in the fields of English language teaching, CALL, we know it as computer mediated language learning and teaching, syllabus designing and designing teaching materials for both classroom and beyond classroom teaching. Those who are working with engineering colleges are very much known to the books that she has published with Oxford University. She has co-authored almost 15 books for reputed publishers of India like Oxford University Press and Prentice Hall of India. Today, in her workshop, Dr. Pushp Lata is going to focus on writing, research writing, especially considering the proper selection of words, effective arrangement of ideas, and logical development of paragraphs. This workshop is going to be useful to everyone as it is going to help them to enhance the quality of their manuscript by bringing in precision, accuracy, and coherence. Now we shall start with this workshop. I am thankful to you, Dr. Pushp Lata, on behalf of everyone who is joining us for this session today. And I'm sure this is going to be an enlightening session for everyone. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Tarun, for giving me this opportunity to talk to the participants of this ELT Summit that you are going to organize in the last week of this month. And it's truly an honor to conduct such kind of a workshop online and especially for your own fraternity. So I'm really grateful to you that you have given me this opportunity. Now, I also thank all the participants for being part of this workshop because their presence is, in fact, will make it what it is supposed to, work for. Otherwise, any conferences or workshops, I think they do not really culminate into the kind of purpose it has without its participants. So I really thank all the participants. They have spared the time rather than sitting right in front of the TV and spending time with the family or maybe for the household chores. They have stolen the time and they are part of this workshop. I understand that they know the importance of academic writing and they are the serious researchers and serious academicians. So it will be all fun to spend an hour together, and let's hope you find it really useful. So now I'll share my slides with you all. Hope slides are visible. Dr. Tarun, you please help me in understanding that.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, can I go ahead?
Yes, please.
Okay, so what I'm going to focus on in today's workshop is on language and the style part of academic writing. Now, right in the beginning, I would like to quote what Stephen King has said. I quote, "To be a successful writer, I know of only two methods: read a lot lot and write a lot. Yes, my dear friends, it holds the, the complete truths. If we want to become good writers, we need to read a lot and also we need to write a lot. But if we do that little more systematically, we'll get more acknowledgement and we'll always succeed in whatever we do. Being researchers and academicians, we are well aware of this particular diagram that you see right in front of you. When we talk about academic writing, automatically in our mind comes, okay, I need to write the abstract for my paper or my term paper. Oh, introduction, I need to do my literature review. What will be my methodology? We start looking for the methodology, maybe the, quantitative methods or qualitative methods or mixed methods. I'm going to interview or I'm going to send a questionnaire. All sorts of things we think about and we try to create the research design for us. Then after collecting the data, we try to, bring out the results and analyze them and put it in the discussion part. And finally, we have the conclusion and summation. Let it be the part of thesis, it could be a paper. Even in thesis, the similar thing will happen. Now, one of the key aspects which we ignore as researchers is the language and the style part. If you have an understanding of the concepts, of the methodology, of you know that how you will be writing, but you need to know how to write. So this is the backdrop with which we are writing. Now, a couple of questions for you. So I would like to see in the chat box your answers. What makes academic writing good? Let me see in the chat box. Yes, please. Dr. Tarun, where is the chat box? Is it Q&A?
You can just click on chat.
Chat is
at the bottom,
Q&A,
like just
I think.
next to Q&A, you will be able to see polls
No,
and
I have
chat.
new share and then pause and annotate. So chat box is not there with me.
Oh.
Let me just see if they have here. Okay, yeah, I think it's coming in more. Okay, yeah. I don't see the answers there. Hope I'm able to operate that.
Can you see? Yes, you can click on 4 new messages, and they have been writing.
Where is that? Because in the chat box. Anyways, let us. It's always good to know if people have written something, but I'm not able to see this in this end.
Right. I would read it for you, ma'am. They have written like creative approach, content, a coherent and well-organized rise of writing. Academic writing is for literary scholars. The first idea of mind in simple words, then to elaborate and illustrate with new thoughts, etc. And some of them are writing convincing methodology. Creative approach makes academic writing more fruitful, structured, and so on.
Wow, fantastic. So you have made my job really easy. Very true. We have content, If you really want to understand that what academic, what makes academic writing good, so qualitative, you will find it's the content, which comes first. Your own understanding how original it is. What kind of sound research you have done in that. Whether the research has been timely done. Suppose you are still talking about what was done in 1956 or maybe 1759 or maybe 1830. So it will not be, contemporary. It will not, till date, it will not have the coverage. So it has to be timely. It has to be valuable. It should be, you should be able to justify that. and it should be replicable too. So this is one of the major feature of good academic writing. Then selection also is another feature. What is included? How much needs to be included? How, what kind of details you can provide in your, research paper? What should be your focus? And, whatever details you are providing, it should be adequate enough. It should be replicable so that, the readers, they can have a full understanding of the way you are developing the entire idea. Then organization. Your research paper, it should have the logical progression of the ideas. It should follow a conventional pattern, of research paper writing or article writing if you are writing the thesis also. So organization, it has to be more structured. It has the organization has to be logical and in the conventional form, because you're writing for the readers of that particular domain. So what happens if you have structured it well, it becomes easy and people can appreciate the way you have developed it. Then finally, presentation. See, you need to have the appropriate writing style. You need to have the appropriate choice of words. Now, whatever knowledge you have, you are going to finally pen it down on a piece of paper and send it for publication, or submit it for your doctoral. So you need to have the right choice of the words, uh, right kind of arrangement of the ideas. You need to have the appropriate phrases. Grammatically, it should be correct. Whatever punctuation marks you are using, that should help in making the sense out of whatever you are writing. In case you are wrongly putting the punctuation marks, instead of making sense, there is a possibility it may mar the sense what you wanted to convey. So it becomes really important. So rightly, all of you said that it includes content, it includes selection of the material, it also includes the organization of the ideas, and then finally the presentation. So uh, now, uh, as researchers, we have come to a point where we understand what is good academic writing, what are its elements are involved, and what are its characteristic features. You remember, our focus in this workshop is language and style. So coming to that, uh, now my question to all of you is, what do you understand by linguistic accuracy? Because this is one word which comes to our mind. Okay, it should be accurate, it should be appropriate. So what do you understand? Can you mention 3 points in the chat box which you would like to include in the linguistic accuracy? Yes.
Are you able to see the inputs now, ma'am?
My dear, no.
No. Oh my God. No issues. I will read it for you once
You have to
again.
help me out.
Yes,
I think
yes, yes. There should be some setting that we have missed out, but no worries. So
it's okay. You are helping me.
yes, their inputs are proper usage of language, vocabulary and correct grammar, correct use of linkers, proper use of grammar and vocabulary. Ritu says appreciate the use of language. Anuradha Pandit says correct choice of words. Dr. Amita says clear language. Divya says correct language and usage of words. Sharda Mani says vocabulary. Saraswati Chakravarti says appropriate grammar and vocabulary. Sian Lal Chandani has written right
That's
choice
enough,
of words
I
and
think.
so on. Yeah.
Yeah. I think you have a fair amount of idea what is that is included into in linguistic accuracy. So, friends, when we are talking about, okay, so when we are talking about linguistic accuracy, of course, we are talking about grammatical correctness, because that is going to bring the clarity of meaning. That is going to make our writing more readable for our readers. And of course, when we have linguistic accuracy, when our manuscript is grammatical error free, then naturally we will have better credibility in the eyes of our readers. So, my dear friends, linguistic accuracy is very important. As researchers, we always we should always keep in mind that our manuscript should be as grammatical error free as possible. It should have no grammatical errors whatsoever. And I caution you, please do not use, you know, Grammarly or other checks. If at all you use, just go, uh, whatever suggestions it has given to you, see whether in the context you accept that or you do not agree to that. If you do not agree, please do not accept that, because there are certain problems when it comes to Grammarly and other platforms which give us, because with the synonyms also, it's not that you can freely change the word. You need to see whether the other synonym is fits in that particular context or not. So I suggest that we need to work on the grammatical correctness of our documents. Yes, here is a wonderful, cartoon. Let's eat, Grandma. What does it mean? You're all going to eat your grandma, right? So let's eat, Grandma. So you're addressing her and you're just asking her, come, let's eat. So the first one is incorrect. And the second one, the comma makes it meaningful, right? With the first one, your grandma is going to beat you, right? Let's not do that. So it's an anonymous quote, but an interesting one. Silly grammar mistakes can really make one look dumb. Though a person might be very good at the subject being addressed, grammar mistakes can be a big turn off for the reader. You might be really knowledgeable, you might have a good hold over your subject, but the bottom line is that if you're making too many grammatical mistakes, your readers are not going to read your research paper, because, under the number of grammatical mistakes, uh, your message goes unnoticed, because grammatical errors, grammatical mistakes, they easily put off the readers. So now it's a process, right? We talk about a product, it looks really good when you get your research paper published or your doctoral thesis is submitted. It comes into the shape of a book, all good. But there's a process involved in that. It's good to think of the product. It's good to think of, getting your papers published in highly acknowledged journals, high impact factor journals. But be clear about the process that it involves, so that you are able to get your manuscript published in your desired, journal, or maybe with the publishing house. So there are 5 W's in 1 H, which we need to keep in mind. One is who. Who is this writing intended for? For whom are we writing? It's very important. So in our case, when we are doing research and we want to get it published, we should know that even language and style varies from journal to journal. So when you publish it in American journal, or when you publish it in an Australian journal, or when you get it published in UK journal, or German, or journal from Germany, or maybe Japan, you will find some slight differences there in the journals. So first go through the papers which have been already published and see who is this writing intended for, because that is going to decide your language and style. What is the intent of the document? What exactly you are trying to convey? When? How soon does it need to be submitted? You need to see your research, your, the kind of knowledge that you are sharing with your readers. It should be updated. It should not be like you had done some work 5 years back and you are quoting the same even now. That is not, updated one. So it's always better to understand when are you going to submit it, use the latest data, use the latest, surveys that you have conducted. Why? For what reason is it being written? You know, what is that you want to find out? You want to find out the impact of poverty on children. You want to find out uh, how COVID-19 has impacted the education sector at large, or you want to understand that how these lockdowns have impacted primary education, secondary education, and the higher education, or so, so the idea has to be clear in your mind. Then language will automatically follow. Where is the document going? Where are you sending this? How will the document be distributed? Whether it will be, published on the online platform or in a printed journal, or it will be part of some anthology. You need to know this. Now coming to the writing process, okay, stage wise. First is whatever comes to your mind, there is generation of the ideas. Put them down. That is called mind mapping. Jot them down, and then, when you want to see the correlation, or you want to see how it is related to the other one, put the arrows, or maybe, you have thought of four main factors. So what are the sub factors or subcategories that you would like to touch upon? Put them under that. So what is that you want to prove? Write a sentence on that. So this is how you can do the mind mapping, brainstorming. So this is the pre-writing stage. At this stage, you try to develop, your idea. Just, there is an idea and there are sub ideas. So when you just, do this brainstorming, the more you brainstorm, the ideas, are struck in your mind, that what is that you would like to answer first, in what way. So you get clarity on that. Second step is where you outline a structure of ideas. See, you had n number of ideas and you have jotted them down. Now you see, can you, bring a structure? Can you see that how the, different points are falling in? What are the main headings? What are, under each main heading, excuse me, what kind of subheadings you would like to put. So there has to be a logical progression of the idea. So that is the second stage when you are preparing the proper outline of your research paper. Sorry. Then third stage is where you are, writing and revising. There should be writing and revising. So you are writing your manuscript, you are developing your, abstract, and then you are doing your literature review. You have collected your data, you are putting it there, and you are trying to see that what should go in the introduction part, because you have the research questions in your mind. You need to state that, because in order to find the answers of those research questions, you have collected the data. So when you are doing this, automatically you will find that you have done literature review, and that helps you in bringing out the gap. And then you have the research questions, and your, data that you have collected, it tries to help you in answering those questions. And then you are discussing the results. So you find that your writing develops logically, and you need to revise your own writing. That, it keeps on going simultaneously, because writing is a recursive process. It's not the linear process. We understand it, but when it comes to writing, rewriting, and developing, redeveloping, uh, in this process, you might discard few passages. there is a possibility paragraphs, or you might add on some information, or you might shift the information to some other place. So all these things happen when you are writing. Editing and proofreading, when once you have finished writing, then you need to edit it. You need to be really meticulous when you are doing the editing of your manuscript. You need to put in a great amount of effort. You need to be very observant. You need to see that, if proper alignment is not there, or when you have constructed the paragraph, when you read that paragraph once again, you find that it's not logically connecting with the next idea. So you can see that what needs to be done now. So editing is where you just try to give a one major careful go through of the entire draft, where you do not hesitate in deleting or adding some new information. Just see that whether there are proper connections, and it is the story that you have crafted on your research paper, it makes sense to your readers. Proofread it. It's not only the grammatical mistakes. Let me tell you, even spelling mistakes, even punctuation marks mistakes, they are going to make a mess of your work. The hard work that you have put in, you need to take this step of writing very seriously. Finally, presenting. Why presenting is there? Because every journal has a way, you know. Uh, some journals, they ask you for 150 words abstract. There are other journals which ask you for 250 to 300 words. Or there are journals which ask you for 3 keywords. There are other journals which ask you for 5 keywords. And there are journals which ask you for just for 4 pages a research paper. There are other journals who want the, good amount of literature review, and they want you to submit a paper of 11, 12 pages. So now you are going to present, you have to see, and even the site, references, you will find it varies from journal to journal. There are journals which are, accept APA style. There are journals which accept the MLA style references, or maybe Chicago style. Whatever it is, you need to have a clarity about that, and then make it presentable so that you can finally submit it to the journal or maybe the anthology. Now, can you tell me two major misconceptions that people have when it comes to writing? Yes, can I have a few answers? Because now, with your experience, you could have understood by now, okay, there are certain misunderstandings about research. Yes? Yeah, let me see. Hope, Dr. Taran, a few
Yes.
answers are pouring in. Can you just read
Yes,
it out?
yes, yes. One of the misconception is longer write-up is usually better.
Okay, good.
And writing
Absolutely.
is misconceived as a product.
Okay.
Then Dr. Devi Datta says writing lofty words is good on paper.
Mm.
Dhwani
Yeah.
says writing more is better.
Mhm.
Then Dr. Amrita Raj says English vocabulary should be high. I mean, so that's her
Mhm.
opinion. And uh,
Yeah,
then
fantastic,
yes.
fantastic. I think they are great researchers. They have
One thing
cited
that we need to be considerate is Saurabh Gurjar says clever plagiarism.
I think Saurav knows that, people, they just try to change the words and do. But no, my dear, if you just, I think he knows better. That's the reason he has put it there. this clever plagiarism does not work at all. You know, when you submit your research papers to very good journals, and you know, when you submit your doctoral thesis, yeah, they always run through in the purchased plagiarism checker. And let me tell you, that gives you the entire story, you know, where it has been likely to copy, because it catches if you have make the changes in the words. So but absolutely right that we need to be very, very careful when we are writing. It has to be original. You can take the help of some research papers and all. That has to be there. I think for every research paper, we read almost 20, 25 papers or 3 to 4 books, and then, you know, we are able to bring it to those, you know, 10 to 12 pages research paper. But uh, you know, that smart working doesn't help. Anyways, Mr. Gujar, thank you very much. So it's, you know, I'm coming to very simple kind of misconception. I do not have to waste my time in pre-writing. Let me just straight away write whatever comes to my mind. Let me tell you, this is a major misconception. You know, pre-writing is essential even for the experienced writers. I have published more than 50 research papers, but for me, it's very essential that I need to brainstorm. I need to see that what are, you know, ideas I want to put across. If I'm writing about, you know, use of mobile phones for teaching, I need to talk about that, you know, what are the major features? What is that I can use for? What will be the activities? Then I can see that, you know, what are the major benefits of using my mobile phone for teaching, and what is that other you know, teaching aids may not be that effective. So I need to do lot of pre-writing before, so that you know, I can come up with original ideas. Then I don't need to copy paste also, because the structure of the research papers really clear in my mind. So I think my draft will be better if I write it when I'm feeling inspired. Let me tell you that, you know, uh, it's not that one fine day you will be illumined and then you will, you know, you will take your laptop and you'll start typing, and, you know, you'll be able to write your research paper in 7 days. It's not going to happen. Okay, so always remember, you know, you need to have all the ingredients in place, and you need to churn it well, and you need to think through, you need to see, you need to discuss, you need to, you know, you need to question yourself, so that, you know, the idea that you were so passionate about, it becomes your own, and you are able to then, you know, articulate, you can pen it down. So this is another misconception. My instructor will tell me everything I need to revise. My dear friends, as researchers, we should not do that. If we are waiting our instructor or our guide or so our supervisor to do everything, let me tell you, then you are going to miss on the opportunity to craft it, to draft it, and to fine tune it the way you want it. Because see, uh, the instructor or the guide or the supervisor can help you in chiseling your ideas. Okay, they can guide you, you know, what goes where. But when it comes to writing, you should take it up. So it's not that your guide should tell you everything. Uh, that should not be the case. I'm a good writer, so I don't need to revise and edit. However good writer you are, editing and proofreading, they are the essential part of it, because your good writing will be acknowledged when those small punctuation marks are in place, those spellings, you know, which have gone wrong, those do not put off your reader. So Never ever think that even if you have good command over the language, you need to edit that and you need to revise it. So now, what is there in the academic writing style? It's formal. It's not that you write the journalistic writing or your, emotional outburst in the poetry and all. It's different from that. And it's formal. It's clear. It has to be impersonal. And the another major feature is it should be objective in style. And of course, it should be concise and precise. It's very, very important. Whatever we are writing, later on, I'm going to talk about it. Do not repeat words and phrases until unless it is required, because that will make your writing more crisp and precise. Uh, the moment you are repeating the words, that shows that you have shortage of vocabulary and you don't know what will be in place. So change your expressions, see that how well you can articulate, how you can make it more rich for your readers. Follows conventional, whatever the conventional style is. So there are, a few rules. I'm going to discuss those in detail later on. For example, we should not use contracted forms. In academic writing, never ever use don't or isn't or ain't or won't. These kinds of contracted forms are never ever used. Circumlocutions also we should avoid at all cost. Your academic writing should employ the specialist vocabulary. Every domain has its own set of words, technical words to be used. For example, ELT has its own, set of words. Now, others will not use accuracy, fluency, and spontaneity the way ELTians use. Others will not use the way we talk about assessment, we talk about validation, we talk about reliability, we talk about transparency. Those are the words, which are used in ELT. So, literature, you will use pantheism or inner stream of consciousness, willing suspension of disbelief. So, those are the words which are used in literature, but not in ELT. Similarly, it happens in, medical profession, legal profession, and engineering profession. So we need to see what domain we are writing for. Accordingly, we need to employ our technical words. It has to be structured. I have already talked about it, and I have showed you that image, that had the complete structure of a research paper. We should have well-developed paragraphs. Please remember, I have seen quite often, I guide my own research scholars also, that do not have, somewhere you have one paragraph which is running into 2 pages. There is another paragraph which is running into just 3 lines. And there is another paragraph which is running into 10, 12 lines. So please see, it should not happen. The moment you have longer paragraphs, the readability gets affected. So the moment there is a new idea, or you can say it's an idea which needs to be discussed in a different paragraph, you can start a new paragraph from there. Signposted. I always emphasize on this point. Please understand, it's a long writing. So in between, you can give the signpost so that your readers, they know so far what you have talked about. So now, in order to understand the effect of poverty on children, the present paper discusses the data that researchers have obtained through interviews. So now what you are doing, that for understanding, perhaps this was the second question or maybe the first question. So you have stated that. So you have signposted it for your reader. critical. It has to be critical. It has to be analytical. It has to be, you know, you need to have descriptive style also at times when you're discussing the data. It should be properly referenced. It should be well edited and you proofread. Now, what it should not be, that's very important for us to. Can you tell me what is that academic writing should not include? Yes. Let me have your answers, please. Maybe 3 points that you can write. All of you are researchers, right?
Yes, the answers are pouring in.
Yeah, Dr. Tarun.
It's subjective interpretation. Should
Yeah.
not be roundabout, plagiarism, subjective, personal opinion, then
Okay.
figurative language,
Mm-hmm.
prejudiced repetition, ambiguity,
Mm-hmm.
stealing the ideas of others. There is a repetition again here.
Mm-hmm.
Same plagiarism and colloquial vocabulary by Dhwani Joshi,
Yeah, great.
first person narration, etc.
Yeah, participants, you are, great participants. Thank you so much. Let us list out a few things. So you have correctly said that, it has to be formal. It should not have day-to-day conversation, or it should not have journalistic kind of writing style. Academic writing should not be verbose, as you said, that it is not where you can pour out your emotions. So we should not be chatty, we should not use emotive language, and we should not use any slangs. All of us have a habit of saying, oh, things like, or stuff. These are the words which we use in our, poetry, in our groups, in our, institutions, informally. But that should not become the part of academic writing. It's a formal platform. It has to be formal. It has to be objective. It has to be matter of fact style. So do not use slangs or colloquial expressions. Avoid complex sentences also. You have the involved writing. You are mixing up 2 3 ideas and trying to, put in or stuff into one sentence. Then it will make your writing more complex and recondite. So in order to have clarity, you need to check what it really is, whether it gives the meaning that you wish to convey to your reader. Okay, now we should avoid for this, when we are saying that we should not have these in academic writing. So what is that we should not have so that we are able to not to have these things? And the very first thing is we should not use idiomatic, um, idi we have a habit of using a lot of idioms because we feel that it makes more sense. Or colloquial or slang expressions like stuff or wanna, please don't use that. Then you should not use phrasal verbs. It's a big no in academic writing. Look up, turn around, or turn up. Please use other words for them. Investigate, or, you know, those kinds of words. Personal pronouns. There are a few journals or universities which accept the use of I and you, but very restricted. But most of the journals still believe that we should avoid using the personal pronouns. I, we, you, in my opinion. They believe that it's a formal piece of writing. You have done a lot of research into that, and it's when your own ideas are developing, it is based on the kind of understanding you have developed into other people's writing. So conventional ways, you should avoid using personal pronouns, but Again, you need to see there could be a few journals or maybe a few universities which may allow you to use that. Avoid contracted forms. I have already talked about. They are, it's, don't, can't, won't, ain't. All these are contracted forms. These are used in spoken English. We should not use it in formal academic writing. Questions. You know, you can have questions, uh, but not in the question form. Like, uh, why did the government fail? So when you want to write this, you can always say, in the ensuing part of the paper, the um, paper discusses the reasons of failure of government, blah, 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 in eradication of poverty in last 50 years after independence, whatever you want to write. So you have a way of writing it. Do not write questions straight away. So that is a big no. And personal adverbs, where you have the extreme stance and you're just pouring out surprisingly, fortunately, deeply. Please do not use these kinds of uh, personal adverbs also. So no conversational words like, we have, we use that quite often, like what I said earlier. So rather than saying this, you have to, for example, and then, list those things that you want to talk about. Lots of. In everyday conversation, we talk about lots of. But when it comes to writing, we are going to say significant amount. Okay, get, we should use obtain, because get is very informal and conversational. Good and bad. Now we talk about good and bad of something, so we can always talk about positives and negatives or merits and demerits. This is how we need to train our mind for academic writing actually. No vague language. We have so and so forth. Please do not write that. And then avoid repetition of words and phrases. Let me tell you, if you are repeating the words time and again, it discusses, and then again you are coming, the discussion includes, then you are using the word discuss, this discuss, that discuss, the second chapter. So what happened that you are not bringing variation in your expression. Whereas in academic writing, you really require that. So now we have talked about what academic writing is not, and in order to not have that, what is that we need to avoid. So we have talked about what is academic writing, what are its major characteristic features. We have talked about that Dr. Tarun, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you are.
Because there was one
Yes, I could also see that
information that
you were muted for a while. Yes, now it's yeah.
I hope participants would not have missed out any of the points. Shall I go ahead?
Yes, please, ma'am.
Okay, so coming to the clarity of expression, good academic writing should have the clarity of expression. You should write clear English, good English with the, correct spelling and with the correct grammatical expressions. So your writing style should not be colloquial. For example, when we done the obs and the lots of walking with him, he was well chuffed. You know, it's too informal, right? It's too conversational. When you want to write, it's perhaps from the medical domain, it can be said that after performing routine observations for blood pressures and pulse, to check the patient was not tachycardic or hypotensive, we are able to help the patient, that is further definition within the parenthesis. We were able to help the patient to mobilize. So it was talking about the walking. He was able to walk for a significant distance and was extremely pleased with his um, achievement. So now you see that it's talking about that, why the writer is talking about walking and then observation and then, things like chaff. So now if you see the improved version, it's very professional, very objective, and you can see it makes more sense as a reader, even if we do not have the context, but still we can, make out what it tries to convey. Now, coming to the types of errors, one can use, there is a possibility we might have used a wrong word or wrong punctuation mark or wrong usage. So these three types of errors we are going to deal with. Commonly confused words. I'm taking you, small mistakes to the grave mistakes. That is how I have designed my lecture. So simple things, when you are editing, just see that you should not have erred on when you have written they are, there, there, there. So you need to have clarity when you're writing, they are going to store together. Now, one is automatically you should see it's a contracted form, so change it to they are. The managers are in their weekly meeting. So in their weekly meeting, there is a possessive, pronoun here. So we need to have clarity that by mistake, we should not have written THERE. That will be incorrect here. Place the flowers there. It's a, adverb of place. So it indicates the location and direction. So when you are reading your research paper, if at all you have these, just see to it that they should have been used correctly. Then another common confusion is regarding its, it is, its. Now, first thing is the last one does not exist at all. It's not a word at all. So the first one, it's a beautiful day. In the conversational style, it's okay when you say this, but if you are writing, it is good or it is beautiful, it is correct, it is more logical. So it has to be spelled out completely. It is. Now, when it comes to ITS, that is the, again, possessive pronoun. Now, download the program along with its README file. So it's README file. So we need to check on that we should not, unnecessarily put an apostrophe there. Coming to another set, just one or two, I thought, let me just, gradually take you into the journey. So 2, 2, 2. There also you find sometimes, by mistake, we have written TOO. Somewhere, when we are writing, it happens. So our mind should quickly respond to that. I'm going to the store. Preposition has to be used. So TO is correct. So in case it is TOO, you can always correct it because the mind says it's a place. So it's a preposition. Let me use TO. She decided to go along too. That means she decided to go with us, or she also accompanied us. So it cannot be TO, it has to be TOO. So check for that. My jacket is too small. So it talks about the excessive amount. So there also it's fine. I have 2 buttons missing. So you are writing the number here. So just check on that. We should not confuse with the spellings there. Another one is a lot, lot, lot. Now here, the workers are worrying a lot about their jobs right now. We know the migrant workers' problems. So a lot about their jobs. That means to a great degree, to great extent. So it's better when you are writing, write to a great extent. That will be much better. But if at all you are writing, just see to it. We should not confuse. A lot is not a word. And we were each allotted 20 tickets. ALLOTTED. Allotted means assigned, distributed. Last one, because I have seen that affect and effect, and normally writers, they go wrong there. Affect is a verb, whereas effect is the noun. The outage should not affect anyone during working hours. Affect means to influence here. The outage should not have any effect on users. So should not have any effect means any result. Influence, that's the again noun. Type of wrong words. One could be that we are using wrong spellings, wrong typographic, somewhere we have used Times New Roman, other times we are using Georgia, third time we are using German. So please check it, triple check it, that in the entire document, if you have been asked to use Times New Roman 12, check on that. If you have been asked to use the heading in Times New Roman 18, it has to be that. If you have main points in Times New Roman 14, it has to be that. So you need to check that before final submission. So don't just rely on your spell check. Please don't do that. Let me tell you, let me caution you, read your document first on your own very carefully. If you want to check with the help of spell check or maybe Grammarly, then go word by word, so that you should not make, because if you go blindly with that, it may play a havoc on your document. Wrong meaning. Sometimes we just change the synonym, as I mentioned earlier, but we need to see it should fit in there. We should use the dictionary, we should refer to the thesaurus, we should check out for the finer differences between the two words. For example, for state, you can have articulate, but you can, it's not that you will be using enunciate everywhere. You cannot do that. It's not the perfect replacement. Bring about, express, formulate, Again, it will depend on the kind of, for the domain you are writing. Utter, verbalize, put word. So watch out for the words with the wrong shade of meaning. For the wrong meaning altogether, my suggestion will be, please look into dictionaries for this. Until you're convinced that, okay, this is right, you should not use the words. Commonly confused words. You have, spell check won't catch them. So you need to train your eyes to catch them. So coming to, the language again, uh, we should always use the verbs, because verbs, they denote action, and we should be consistent throughout. For example, when you are doing the review of literature, you are writing the literature review section, there you should always use present tense. But in case, you are talking about the historical events, you are talking about the, let's say, language movements that happened. I say that Maithili language movement happened in 1956. So it has to be happened. It has to be in the past tense. It cannot be in the present tense. So historical events will be in the past tense, but rest of the literature review has to be in the present tense. So no confusion whatsoever. Correcting tense shifts. Where are you shifting? Be consistent throughout your sentences and paragraphs. You should not, in the when you're talking about same thing in the first paragraph, you have written the present tense, but when you go on in the second paragraph and third paragraph, still you're talking about the literature review, and you have, you don't even get to know when you started using the past tense. Please don't do that, because it's very important. We should be consistent throughout. Be familiar with the verb forms and the tenses. What you can do, in case you do not, you feel that you have confusion. So just, go through Rain and Martin or some other grammar, and then try to just brush your rules for, present tense, past tense, future tense, indefinite, continuous, perfect continuous, so that it becomes easy for you to use the, tense forms correctly in your writings. Avoid evaluative words. Please do not do that, because academic writing is not the place, or academic presentations is not the place where you should be using the evaluative or judgmental words. Like it's too badly, greatly, amazing, or rather disappointing. Never ever use such kind of judgmental words. Okay, instead of using technical evaluations which related to academic or discipline specific criteria, values such as valid, inaccurate, reliable, clearly demonstrate. So these are the words which you can use instead. Avoid absolute statements. I have told you, for example, learning a second language is a very difficult process for everyone. For everyone, it's a huge statement. It's an extreme kind of stance that you are saying everyone finds it difficult. You know that it's not the case, right? So do not take the absolute stance. Rather, you can write, learning a second language may be a difficult process for many students. So it's better to use moderate. For example, I think secondhand smoke causes cancer. I think. So you say that secondhand smoke causes cancer. So you have established that. You have, with finality, you are saying that. Please don't do that. You can instead write, secondhand smoke may cause cancer. So that shows the possibility. Okay. Be careful about the placement of the subordinate clauses. Now, the moment you do not place them, they will interrupt the main clause. So you should see to it that where to place the subordinate clause. Here is an example for you. Please read that. Industrial spying is increasing rapidly because of the growing use of computers to store and process corporate information. Look at this and just apply your mind, brainstorm this, think about it. Then if you give the reason first, don't you think that it will become a better construction? See here, because of the growing use of computers to store and process corporate information, industrial spying is increasing rapidly. You yourself can see that when you are beginning with the subordinate clause, it becomes more effective. One major reason is that you wanted to emphasize that what is creating the problem. And that's how you see that, you have brought it right in the front, and you have made it more emphatic. Use parallel grammatical construction. You should not do like this, that the first part of the sentence is in active voice, second part of the sentence is in passive voice. Please do not do that. You need to have the parallel grammatical construction. Now here is an example. In Florida, where the threat of hurricane is an annual event, we learned that it is important. One, to become aware of the warning signs. Two, there are precautions to take. And three, deciding when to take shelter is important. Where does the problem lie? Yes, the first one is in infinitive construction, to become aware of the warning sign. But the second one, what it is? There are precautions to take. That means complete sentence. The third one, deciding when to take shelter is important. So deciding when to take shelter, again, it's a sentence starting with the gerund. So now you see, first one to infinitive, second one complete sentence, third one starting with the gerund, and then that is also fine, but complete sentence. So it will be better either have the infinitive forms, uh, that is non-finite clauses, that will be absolutely fine. So it's better to write, in Florida, where the threat of hurricane is an annual event, we learned that it is important to become aware of the warning signs, to know what precautions to take, and third, to decide when to seek shelter. You can yourself watch which one sounds more clear and consistent in construction. Of course, the second one. Avoid overusing noun forms of words. This is called nominalizations. We should avoid that. Implementation of the plan was successful. We can always say the plan was implemented successfully. Avoid misplaced or dangling modifiers. It's very important for us to understand, because most of the time, when you read your own manuscript, you will find somewhere the modifier has been misplaced. And as a result of that, it doesn't give the kind of meaning it should give. When I was at the store, only looked at DVD players. I did not look at anything else but the DVD players. When I was at the store, I looked only at the DVD player. Only looked at, I did not buy. Whereas it says that I looked only at the DVD player. So when I want to say, I have to make it very clear. Use of the adverbs, where to place it, it should be clear to us. So rather than saying only looked at, we have to say looked only at the DVD player. Now, here is another example. Rushing to get to the post office before it closed, my bicycle clearly hit an unwary young woman. You see the dangling modifier here. What is that? An unwary young woman, somewhere it is. Now here you can see, rushing to get to the post office before it closed, I nearly hit an unwary young woman. When did I do that? While riding my bicycle. So my bicycle nearly hit an unwary young woman. First, you have hit the unwary young woman. That's the important piece of information. When? While riding my bicycle. It was not a good idea to serve food to the guests standing around the room on flimsy paper plates. Flimsy paper plate is coming towards the end. It is associated with food, but it is coming towards the end. So it has to be taken a little early on. It has to be like, it was not a good idea to serve food on flimsy paper plates to the guests standing around the room. So this is how we can check on that. We should avoid multiple negatives. Dr. Tarun, I think we are running out of time.
We could continue for 5-7 minutes, ma'am, and then we can move to the Q&A.
Okay. So we should avoid multiple negatives. You know that, multiple negatives, they make your writings more recondite, more, abstruse. So you need to avoid that and use the affirmative constructions. Choose action verbs over to be, because if you're using too many linking verbs, that also makes your writing unclear. Now, here is one example for you. One difference between television news reporting and the coverage provided by newspapers is the time factor between the actual happening of an event and the time it takes to be reported. The problem is that instantaneous coverage is physically impossible for newspapers. So it's talking about that television reporting is instantaneous, whereas newspaper reporting is not. So it will be clearer if you say television news reporting differs from that of newspapers in that television, unlike newspapers, can provide instantaneous coverage of the events as they happen. So you can see that the use of action verbs, it makes your writing rather clearer. Avoid unclear pronoun references. Let me tell you, participants, usually it happens we are writing and we forget that, we have used the pronoun, but this pronoun, whether it corresponds well with the, there are 2-3 references in the previous sentence to which it is talking about, that is not clear. So it's very important to make it clear when you are using the pronouns. Here is an example. With the spread of globalized capitalism, American universities increasingly follow a corporate fiscal model, tightening budgets and hiring corporate contract employees as teachers. This has prompted faculty and adjunct instructors at many schools to join unions as a way of protecting job security and benefits. What is this? Here you are talking about the trend. So naturally, if you use the word clearly, this trend has prompted faculty and adjunct instructors at many schools to join unions. It makes the meaning rather clearer. And there is another. Lapui worked in a national forest last summer, which may be her career choice. It's better to say it's not the forest which is of interest, because she's talking about career choice. So it has to be Lapui worked in a national forest last summer. Forest management may be her career choice. So quote authoritative sources. Please remember, whenever you are quoting, you should mention the name of the researcher always. Punctuation mark errors. For commas, you should know that before and, but, so, yet, we should use a comma. That's always required. I have seen that when people list before and they do not put, that's absolutely wrong. Use commas after introductory clauses and phrases or words that come before the main clause. When there are two clauses, especially you need to, put a comma in order to bring a distinction in the two clauses. While I was eating, comma, the cat scratched the door. So there's a comma. Semicolon. It's very important for us to understand where to use the semicolons. Do you have any idea? Yes. You need to use semicolons between the two related independent clauses, where you are not using and, but you can use a semicolon and still you can continue writing the other second statement as well. The participants in the first study were paid, semicolon. Those in the second were unpaid. So now you see here, you have not said and those in the second study were not paid. What you have done, you have put a semicolon and you have said those in the second study were unpaid. Use a semicolon to separate elements in a series that already contains comma. You know, you have put a comma somewhere and now you have listing of the items. So there also you can do that. The students in the class were from Jeend, Haryana, because you know Jeend is in Haryana. So after Jeend you have already put a comma. So after Haryana you cannot put a comma. You have to put a semicolon. Darbhanga, where is it in Bihar? Darbhanga, comma, Bihar. But now we are talking about another place. So semicolon. And Jadavpur, comma, West Bengal. Colons. Use a colon to introduce a list preceded by an independent clause. The application includes the following pieces: colon, personal information, job history, and references. So what does it include? When you are listing, after that, you can put a colon before that. This is another reason wherever you are going to illustrate or extend or amplify, there also you can use the colon. Apostrophes, you know that for contraction, for plural, as plural marker, as possessive markers, we use them. Quotation marks, where to use, we should know that, you know, one thing I think where we have confusion, whether to put full stop in before the quotes or after the quote. So let me say that when you have direct narration, put the quotes after the full stop. And here, suppose you are putting the quote and then who said that you are writing later, then put the quotes, and within the quotes you have to put a comma, then you need to say he said or John said or the teacher said. So here are a few more examples. I think because of the paucity of time, I will not be able to take up these, but coming to paragraph. See, we have talked about punctuation marks, we have talked about words, we have talked about placing of the, you know, phrases. Now, let us see what about the paragraphs. Paragraphs should be well developed. You should use the examples, illustrations, you should cite the data, facts, statistics, evidence. You know, you can develop the paragraphs, you know, around that. You can examine the testimony. Now, you need to first have the thesis statement, what you are talking about in this, and then the supporting ideas can be you know, revolve around that particular main idea. So this is how your paragraph will be well developed. It is said that you should have proper introducers, then you need to have developers where you can use testimonies, examples, definitions, etc. And then you should have terminators so that your paragraph ends smoothly, and then you can have the next paragraph. So you can use compare and contrast, you can evaluate the causes and the reasons, you can examine the effects and the consequences, and you can analyze the topic, you can describe the topic. So this is how you can just look at the construction of the paragraph. Now, how do I know when to start a new paragraph? This is another major question which comes to a writer's mind. When you have a new point, you have a new idea, you can start a new paragraph. When you want to contrast the information, you know, you have said one aspect and you want to say something completely opposite to that. So you can always develop that in the second paragraph. So when you are ending your introduction and you are starting on your discussion part and then you are going to your conclusion, so you can always change the paragraphs. So this is how you need to keep in mind when to change your paragraphs. Now, before we conclude today's session, I would like to just suggest to all of you, publishing your research papers has become really essential if you are in academia. So please do buy any of the books and have the thorough reading, and also, you know, have a copy of it. Whenever you have confusions, you can always, you know, refer to any of these books. I think most of the libraries have. You can always buy one. At least I always keep one with me. Whenever I'm traveling, I'm, going to present a paper or I'm writing, Simon, I keep one copy with me. I have several books, but I make it a point to keep one of them with me when I'm writing.
Please.
So thank you very much. With this, um, we come to the end of this, and now
Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
open for questions.
First of all, I would like to thank you on behalf of everyone. And they have submitted a few questions.
Yeah,
For
sure.
example, this one, wherein Dr. Ravi Bhushan has asked that
Okay.
would you elaborate on the concept of originality?
Originality, actually, see, uh, whenever you are studying something, for example, when you want to write on online communication, online teaching. So, what is that you would like to touch upon? First thing is that. And then in that also, so many people have already done research. So, what is that you would like to address? For example, uh, if I want to write a research paper on online education, English is our forte, or ELT is our domain. So in that, in online education, I'll just, use, let's say right now I'm teaching effective public speaking um, to my students. So now I can just compare that how my teaching has been, received by my students when I did face-to-face teaching and when I have done online teaching. So a contrast of this will become an original idea. So you need to just look for that what is that others have not done. I can do that. Maybe it could be from your own teaching experience. Maybe you have experimented in some other college, in some other school, or maybe you have developed your own vocabulary exercises or maybe tasks, and you want to test that, and based on that you want to report it to the academia or to other researchers that this is how you experimented and it has come out successfully. So originality means that what is that which is originally yours. Okay, you're not just picking up what others have said. Now you are saying your own story. You are just talking about the way you have experimented, the way you could, see the results. And now this is the time when you want, others in the field to know that how the experiment was conducted and became really successful. So that is how you can, look at originality in your research. Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes,
Hope
one
it
of
answers.
our, yes,
Ravi
please.
Bhushanji, I think we have already met Ravi Bhushanji.
Yes, he's from Haryana.
Uh, yeah, yeah.
One more question is on how can we differentiate academic writing from general writing?
Oh, a very good question. Mm, see, whenever you are writing a letter or you're writing an email or you're writing uh, an essay, you will find, and essay is not the academic essay, uh, general kind of things. So what happens there? You are, using semi-formal language. There you are, uh, you will have you will not, it's not necessary for you to make a reference to other researchers. When it comes to academic writing, you will have, you will be widely referencing to other researchers also who have stated something about that particular domain knowledge. So this is how you find that, general writing is really different from academic writing. Academic writing is more formal, it's well researched, it's well documented, and it has got its structure, and there you find that it is again specialist to specialist communication. in general writing, you can write it for anybody. But when it comes to research papers, you are writing for the experts of that particular domain. So that's how you will find technical jargons, technical words will also, you know, uh, flood in
Yes.
the writing. Yeah.
Yes. Another question is by Monal Devale on how to, I mean, what she's, just a second. Uh, when referring to the past studies, maybe she's trying to point out to the study of past literature review section. We refer to studies conducted in the past. Do we use present tense only?
Yes. See, if the surveys were conducted, that is an event. You remember I said, Devaji, that there, if you are mentioning the events, then it becomes important for you to use past tense. But if you are, talking about what other researchers have said, then you can always use present tense because that stays. It's not with a particular survey that was conducted. Okay.
Here,
Uh, you
Mr.
can
Saur,
always
yes.
say, as Gayatri Spivak said in her research paper, can subalterns speak? So now you have used as stated, or as Gayatri Spivak states in her article. So you are using present tense there.
We have a similar question from Saurabh Gurjar. Says how to write review of literature on present tense for a literature or research happened earlier a decade back. So here, ma'am, if you could suggest a good book like that could work as a guide for the researchers,
For what?
especially.
Will you please
Yes, I would repeat it. How to write review of literature on in present tense for a literature or research that happened earlier or a decade or a few years ago. So
Mhm.
some a good research book, a research writing book, if you could suggest, perhaps that is something that could
Yes,
help.
of course. I showed, I think those who have seen the last slide, actually, I knew this kind of, question always because,
Yes.
by now I have conducted several workshops. So I know this is the, general query. So you have very good books by different publishers. I will not say anything on this because I don't want to, annoy any of the publishers, you know in fact, sometimes they sponsor, so it doesn't look nice on my part. But as a reader, you will find all the big publishers, they have books on academic writing. Whatever suits to your reading and your style of understanding, you can always pick up one and befriend with that, and you will find very good examples there. Another way of learning this is that read research papers which have been published in, maybe Elsevier journals, or maybe, Sage journals, or Oxford journals. So what will happen with that? Those are the researchers which get published, or, it's not easy first. And another thing is that, a lot of, uh, reviews they receive, and, you know, there are two, three major editings are done even by the reviewers that is suggested, and copy edited. So what happens as a result of that, you find that they are the research papers where you can see some, uh, the way they develop their literature review. So that can give you a very good idea into that.
True.
Yes.
Many researchers, I mean, who are especially working on their MPhil or PhD, plan to publish their works in the form of a book. So here we have a question from Dr. Rosie Yamnam. She says, for converting a thesis into a book, can we use the same writing style or do we need to bring in sort of variation?
Uh, Again, that depends on the publisher, with whom you are planning to get your thesis published. Um, First thing is you need to change your first chapter and the last. That is always there. And other thing is that you need to see that it should not look as though you have not, it should become your other product, right? Your base is already there, and you are converting that into another achievement of yours. So my suggestion will be, work on that, that how you can, use the same thing, but you can structure it slightly differently, so that, your readers, they get benefited. Because if you're using the same thing, your readers can always go to your research, your doctoral thesis, because nowadays all the theses are archived in Shodh Ganga. So there's no point in getting the same thing published. I'll always suggest that spend some more time, restructure that, make it readable, make it, because, after you have done the research, you always have quite a few things that you wanted to add up.
Right.
So another opportunity for you to, use that.
Ritu has a question on quoting somebody in a paper or a thesis. She says, how much can I use or how much can I quote in my paper? Can I express it in my own words? Perhaps she's trying to point out to the plagiarism issues.
Yes, you can always quote, but not more than 30 words, that as per rules. But you need to see that you should try to, uh, take the essence of the, concept. You should not try to pick up those words or things which are, or maybe, lengthy descriptions. So when you are doing, you should see to it that, because you are making a reference, okay, you are referring to the important concept. So please, uh, be careful, and be judicious enough when you are referring some concept or something,
Right.
some definition, or maybe some elaboration of the, sub-concept, or other micro concepts which get subsumed in the main concept. Whatever it is, you can always, refer to that, and give due credit to that. And what was the other question related to that? The end
Uh,
part of it?
no, I mean, we have another, it was plagiarism was one of the things that was mentioned during
No,
the
that
chair.
we have already
Yes,
done.
yes, yes.
You're
Dhwani
giving the
Joshi
credit,
has,
and
yes,
it's
please.
not a plagiarism.
True, it is
And
not.
I suggest one more thing in literature review. Please do not just copy paste the definition. You should always try to, you develop the concept, and then you try to put in, what is that gets highlighted, and then come to other researcher, that how the things were looked at, and what was done, what kind of background study was there, then come to the next one. So develop it in a proper way, because I have
Right.
seen, because I'm examiner for the thesis examiner, and I'm called for Viva also. And I have seen some of the researchers, they think that literature review is that you just keep quoting. But
Right.
that is not the literature review. Literature review is, there is a concept, there is a problem, there are, maybe two related problems are there, or concepts are there, and it has been looked at differently by people. So once you are quoting that, then you also say, what do you, how do you analyze that? So your own version also has to be, it's a kind of, weaving, you are weaving the tapestry, one into the other. So it becomes a beautiful carpet design.
Definitely. It should
It,
not look mechanical,
yeah, I
like as if
always
you have
tell this
just
to my
taken.
researchers,
Right.
that, your literature review should not be just quoting. It should be, well crafted tapestry, so that, it talks about whatever research has been done in that particular domain. You are putting it across, so the reader gets to know. It's not just 1957. It has to be till date,
Right. True.
2020. So that also needs to be kept in mind.
True. And maybe this is one of the most common things that we observe while going through the thesis. The literature review part is, like you feel like it's been put mechanically. right?
Mechanic. Yeah.
So maybe a bit of creativity and in-depth analysis can help to put it in a proper manner. Well,
Yes.
Dhwani Joshi has another question. She says, how important is the usage of advanced statistical data and analytical tools in academic writing in English?
Yeah, I'm not an expert in that, but of course, these days, whenever I need, I just, bank upon my colleagues because they are experts in my department, and I approach them whenever I need help. But of course, these days, you need to use SPSS tool and
Yes,
Vivo and ANOVA. All these tools are very, very important because now it becomes really important for us to see the trends. It becomes really important for us to see that what is bothering the layman, or how things are being looked at by the experts. So when we interview them, and we uh, with the help of NVivo, when we get to know, when we are preparing the notes and we are trying to see, so it really helps us in understanding, how the things are being looked at by our subjects, or by our experts, or by our students, whatever it is. So these things are important, no doubt. Learn. Swayam is there, NPTEL is there, and edX is there. I'm
yes,
also doing it. Yeah.
great. Saibal Chatterjee has a question. How far the audience factor affects the style of academic writing? And she
How
adds,
the
how far the
hmm,
audience factor affects the style of academic writing. And he adds, do we need to keep the reader in mind before writing academic write-ups?
who is the audience, by the way? First is the your reviewers will be your readers, right? So every journal, every editor, they have a particular way to look at the things, right? They want the for example, I just can give you one example. I wrote one paper on silver screen adaptation of Guide uh, by R.K. Narayan. And that paper is widely, referred. It has more citations. Now, that paper, actually, we sent it to a very technical journal. And there, that particular journal rejected that paper. The reason was that they wanted us to discuss that the camera angle, the lights, and the in the frame and all. Whereas our purpose was not like this. It's a co-authored paper, and all of us looked at that. How the guide on the silver screen has been. The whole story has been. Projected, and what is the cinematic language that makes Guide on the Silver Screen so powerful. So we have discussed the scenes there, and we have talked about the kind of changes the director has made in order to make it more adaptable for the silver screen.
Right.
So then you can see, because those kinds of deeper technical details were not there, that journal did not accept that. But at the same time, when it was published by 3L, that Language Linguistics and Literature, that is the Malaiputra University Journal. And, it was accepted, and though we had two iterations and we had to, change a few things, but now it is widely referred. So we need to see that audience, they are very important, because that will decide your what kind of coverage you will have. Also, the referencing convention also will be followed accordingly, whether it should be APA, whether it should be Chicago, or it should be MLA style. That also will be determined by the journal where you are going to get it published.
Very true.
Hope it
And
answers the question.
yes. And one last question from Shravasti
So many
Chakravarti.
questions, Karan. You have made your participants so inquisitive, right?
I would again take an opportunity to thank you and all the people who have joined. This
Uh,
has created a
I
hope
think
in
I think
my
the
mind.
I think the major credit goes to the participants.
Definitely, right? Because it is their interest
Yes.
that helps, right? And again, it takes us back to the audience element. Shravasti has written, how much hedging would you recommend? And isn't
How
it a
much?
hedging, hedging, would you recommend? Isn't it important to uh, do your own? I mean, she is perhaps trying to talk about originality in writing and says, would you recommend writing in the active voice or passive?
First question I have already answered, so I will
Yes.
not take up that. Second part of the question regarding active and passive voice, it is always advisable to write to use active voice, but sorry, uh, I'm sorry. See, to use the action verbs, that's very important, and never ever use personal pronouns. Okay, so passivization has to be used wherever it's necessary. uh, so it's a very critical issue. It has to be looked at very carefully, because when it comes to uh, active voice, because you're using the action verbs there, so it becomes more powerful, more persuasive, more message oriented. Okay, so you should use active voice, but at the same time you should not use with the personal pronouns, because the personal pronouns are going to create a problem there. Uh, because academic writing is not the place where you should be using it. With, you can have very restricted use for, personal pronouns. So passivization is used, but wherever it's required. But active voice is used because action verbs, they denote action, and actions, they are more powerful. That's the
Very true.
justification that is given. Yes.
So these were the questions, ma'am. Though we had planned it for 1 hour, and as
Oh
like
my God.
it's almost
Oh, it's more than 1.5.
more than that. Like we are almost about to reach 2 hours
Yeah,
time limit. But
I never
this
realized that.
conversation, yes, but this
Participants are really great.
exactly, the participants were so active, so
Mm.
that like you couldn't even realize that we extended, and this is definitely going to be useful. I personally would believe that the researchers who have joined this conversation are going to develop independent writing skill. That's
Okay.
something, like we are always dependent on someone, that someone is going to help us improve it, and you start writing. But perhaps the sessions like this can help them to enlighten themselves and do something for themselves. Yes, please.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Tarun. Actually, you know, in order to become independent writers, we need to become independent thinker. So I'll say that all of us should read a lot and think and think, and then again, my submission will be that when we want to write, we should focus more on outlining first. So it makes our job easier, and when you are thinking on your own, then it becomes easy for you to have a logical progression of the
Right.
idea.
That's true.
So yeah, I agree.
Yes.
Thank you very much,
Yes.
Dr.
Thanks a
Farah.
lot, ma'am. Thanks a lot for joining
It was
us.
indeed a
And
great
it looks
pleasure
like
and honor
our
to
conference has
participants.
already begun with this first session. Looking at the participants and their interest and their responses, we are definitely going to
Yeah.
have more fruitful sessions. And
I'm also
to help them further, I would request you to join us again whenever, like whenever
sure.
they
Anytime.
need your help, right? Uh, Also, to the participants, I am thankful to everyone on behalf of the whole ELT Summit team. Many of them are here in the attend as attendees. uh, we would like to have you for the conference as well, wherein like we would be having such more sessions, as well as we are having the participants participation from more than 20 countries. So that's a good news that we have for this conference. Once
Very.
again, thank you very much, ma'am, for your time and helping our participants to develop their research writing skills. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
Yes.
I'm really.
Thank you, everyone, once again. Bye bye.